A Peek Behind EU Careers Student Ambassadors is a mini podcast series by the European Personnel Selection Office, EPSO. It is recorded in the studios of the Directorate General for Research and Innovation of the European Commission in Brussels. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to one more episode of A Peek Behind EU Careers Student Ambassadors, a mini podcast series by the European Personnel Selection Office, EPSO, during which we get to know our student ambassadors, one of EPSO's programs that helps the EU institutions, bodies, and agencies that EPSO works for to do outreach, to make sure that people out there know about the many opportunities that exist in the EU civil service. And today I have with me Alimat Babatunde, a student at University College Dublin in Ireland, who is one of our student ambassadors. Alimat, welcome to the podcast series A Peek Behind EU Career Student Ambassadors. I will give you the floor and ask you to introduce yourself to our listeners.
Thank you. Thank you for introducing me here, Louise. I'm really happy to be here. So my name is Alimat, as you introduced. I'm currently a final year law student at the University College of Dublin. I am really passionate about international relations, international organizations like EPSO here. And as well as that, I'm really a big advocate for human rights and representation in civil services and in decision making bodies. And yeah, that's really much about myself.
What led you to apply to become a student ambassador? I know it's a bit of a cliche, but anyone listening to us, I'm sure, is interested in knowing about your motivation.
So I was really interested in working in the EU. Like, that's one of my biggest dreams, and working on a global stage. And then I was scrolling on one day on LinkedIn, and then because I follow you, if you want to get the updates about the EU. And basically, I noticed that there was the applications were out for the careers ambassadors, and I thought, okay, I'm really interested in working in an international organization, understanding, the EU on another level. And I thought, okay, perfect. This is a great opportunity for me to get my foot in the door and sort of understand it from a student perspective. And after when I saw the applications, I was like, okay, let me check, does my university have one? And then I saw that my university did have a previous ambassador, and I was like, okay, this is a perfect opportunity for me to, understand the role, understand how I could bridge the Irish market and my university to, on the global stage and learn for myself and to improve my skills.
Right. Well, thank you for being one of my followers on LinkedIn. I'm happy to know that I led you to discover the Student Ambassadors Program by EPSO. What was your first impression of the program? You applied, you got in, and like many other student ambassadors, you came to Brussels in October of 2024 to participate in the in-person training conference that EPSO organizes.
So, firstly, thank you for organizing the conference. At first, from an outside perspective, when I heard, I was going to Brussels, I was like, this is going to be something intense. Like, I had so many misconceptions, right? But then once we started going in, it was really easy and really understanding that all of us here are all in the same boat. We're all coming from similar backgrounds, and different cultures, I will have to emphasize. So it was such a great experience learning that everybody's in the same position, and we're here to sort of promote the EU and for more people to get into the EU and interested as well. So it was really relatable talking about, how can we reach out, talking about our skills, our presenting skills, and we did this one session about like public speaking, which you wouldn't expect us to be doing, but when we did it, it was like honestly such a humanizing experience, because we were talking about when you fumble over words, when you talk fast, when you forget what to say, and things like that was such a great experience for me to, learn about, my other skills, my personal skills. And as well as that, meeting people that I have built such amazing connections from different cultures. And honestly, we're just like a whole big family, and it was such a great experience.
I wanted to know if there's been an experience, an event, a situation that you thought was particularly important that you would like to share with us, maybe a milestone in your development as a student ambassador, that you could share with our listeners.
We offer one-to-one consultations with other students. So basically explaining, so this is the routes to get into the EU civil service, these are the competitions, these are the traineeships, like these are the different aspects and the different routes for you to get into the EU bubble, let's say. And I've done consultations, which have been really great because I think I've been able to build up that rapport with other students. So they've been able to understand, what's going on. And I did a career fairs. So I was working with the Department of Foreign Affairs, which was really a great opportunity because I genuinely love working with on the international global stage. So getting to work with them and showing how, how the EU is literally right next to our foreign affairs, and how people can get into it, and seeing students all across different paths. I did this meet sort of like a meet online with a former trainee. She did the Blue Book traineeship, yes. And it was a great opportunity for me to basically show, like, although I do have the information, the experiences was something people really desire. So I was able to bring that, and it was a really great event.
Right. So she did the Blue Book traineeship program of the European Commission, just for those who may not be familiar with the jargon. Right. I know that you are a board member of Diversity in Law. I know that diversity is an issue that is very dear to your heart. Is this something that you've also brought into your role as student ambassador?
Yes, actually, I have brought that role into the student ambassador, because I think one thing I would love to highlight to the audience is that the thing about being a ambassador is that like it's yours, and you can bring so many different aspects to it, because again, you're talking about the civic life, the civil life, and because I'm such a big advocate for representation, human rights, and diversity. Within the political space and within the like decisionary spaces, I was able to utilize that into my ambassadorship. So I did like an online session with diversity in law, and basically promoting people getting into the EU from so many different backgrounds, because I understand when I first expressed being an ambassador, I was telling people, some people were very hesitant. They were like you, somebody from from a minority background, working in the EU, how does that work? But I basically made sure to tell people, if you want to make a change, you have to enter the spaces to make that change and implement that change. So being an ambassador and seeing how the EU works, it's a great opportunity for me to understand how can I help other people from other backgrounds, for their voices to be heard and to be respected, and for them to be included.
Right. So your Irish Nigerian background is something that is very present and that you're proud of. And I'm really happy that you got the opportunity to confront some of your fellow students with similar backgrounds that may have some reluctance to project themselves in the EU public service, to show to them that it's perfectly possible. And as you said it yourself, if you don't enter these spaces, you cannot make them more diverse, more open in the first place. I wanted also to ask you, for those of us listening to us, what sort of like skills, features would you say somebody needs to have in order to be a good student ambassador?
Ooh, that's a very good question. I would say what would be the great skills? I think firstly, vulnerability, because you're going to be work. As I said, we are big. There's several ambassadors, and being vulnerable is actually, it's a really, people view it as a weakness, but it's actually a strength because you're able to actually understand, okay, this is where I need help and this is what I can do. Because I understand that as an ambassador, as I said, it is your own. And you can basically utilize so many different things and you need to come up with so many different ideas, you know? And like I remember when I was first like doing stuff and I was doing events, I had to ask my other ambassadors for that I made good connection with and friends with in Brussels to be like, hey, like I don't know if this is correct or this is right. And they have been like honestly angels and great people like that I have even met up with going to their countries. And I think that's really important. And as well as that, I think being comfortable to, I wouldn't say cringe, but at the same time, pushing yourself or having that confidence to be like, you have to go out and promote it in either way. It could be it could be Instagram reel, it could be a story, you know, it could be something funny because I noticed some other ambassadors, they use like memes to basically explain like, okay, this is how you basically this is coming up or this opportunity is coming up. So I think that's a really good skill to have. And yeah, creativity, it's make it your own. If you want to do a quiz on your story and be like, when was the EU founded or how do you do this, like you can do that. You're still pushing the message out there, which is so important to understand.
And would you say that it is important, of course, to, as you said, show vulnerability, understand what your needs are, what the gaps are, and ask help from others? Would you say that the support network amongst ambassadors is one of the assets of the program?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the support is the core of the whole student ambassadorship, you know? I think it was the really, really big thing that was even emphasized in the training and even leaving the training. That was so important because I remember when we were leaving, everybody was getting each other's like, you know, social media and stuff like that to see, you know, to see like if you need help, I'm here for you, or you know, like if you need anything or any ideas, it's really, really important. There's two particular ambassadors I can think of. So Antonio Felix and Paulina Liberg. Antonio is the Portuguese ambassador. He is honestly incredible. When I say somebody who I very much, if I need help or anything like that, they are there or they are very, very supportive. It's the one of the most beautiful thing is that came out from doing these things. It's like the support and the friendships that you made because you would see on each other's Instagram posts, we'll be commenting like, go amazing, fire emojis, all that type of stuff to promote. Again, like we are all here together to support one another. Like, don't feel that you're alone. So I think that was something really good. And Paulina, one of the Dutch ambassadors, with Paulina, it was really great for her to always just be there in the moment to be like, okay, this is a quick clarification. Because I remember I was giving a presentation that I needed help with, and she was really helpful with that.
So, a big shout out to Antonio from Portugal and Paulina from the Netherlands for all the support that they have given you. And what a beautiful way, I think, to illustrate the support network and the friendships that you create through this program all over Europe. Alimat, I believe that it's important for us also to talk about some of the challenges that come with being a student ambassador. What sort of advice would you give to someone like you who's involved in a lot of different things and needs to find time to be a student ambassador for EU careers?
That's a very good question. Like sometimes, I'm not gonna lie, I actually forget that I do certain things until someone points it up and I was like, oh yeah, I did that. I think one of my biggest things is if you have a dream, nothing can stop you. No, like there's nothing that can stop you. You know, when you find that purpose in doing something, it's to keep striving. I am aware of the fact that like, okay, I do a lot of stuff, you know. Like for example, my event with diversity in law and doing it with EU careers, it was like perfect. As a first generation Irish Nigerian, it's really like It's really beautiful when you know that you have those thoughts and you have the resources to basically build that bridge. Like, for example, the latest event that I did, when I saw like people coming in there and people attending, and I saw predominantly it was like minority students, like Black students, and like my friends as well. I was like, that's the impact you're making. I this ambassadorship,
Hmm.
although you may think that, oh, it might just be a small role, it but it has a big impact though. You know, you're pushing people out there to make sure that their voices is heard. I feel that sometimes you may think that like it's a bit, when you're working with so many different things, it's like you can't control everything. Because sometimes, like I know at events, maybe some people might not show up or it might be pushed another time and stuff. And like sometimes it may frustrate you, but you have to understand that you're still doing something at the end of the day, or you have made enough to make sure that that event people leave with knowledge and awareness and stuff. Sometimes it's nice to look at other ambassadors and see what they've done. And I think sometimes that's like a challenge that I might face. I'm like, okay, I've done a post. I've done a online because I did an online information session. I was like, okay, what can I do? And I noticed some ambassador. I know Antonio did something like day in the life of an EU career ambassador. Maybe you can do something like that. So it's really important to, be flexible and to utilize your resources to the maximum.
Alimat, am I right to understand that you are planning to join the EU public service yourself?
Absolutely, 110%. I would love to work in the EU institutions. You know, I'm really passionate about human rights and looking about how us citizens, interact with our legal like instruments and stuff that's in the EU. So I think definitely with the ambassadorship, it's really shown me like, okay, this is how you start. So I think 110% I would love to do it. And as well as that, I love languages. I'm like a language nerd. I definitely do think like working in international space and working with people from so many different cultures and exposing yourself to so many different outlooks and seeing how different countries, interact with the EU and how they feel is something so like it's so refreshing to see and so insightful. So definitely speaking, like I think this would be a great opportunity for me to get involved with and to be the change.
Could you tell us something about University College Dublin? What is it like to study there?
I think University College Dublin, so we say UCD for short, is it's one of the most international universities in Dublin, and I even work in the international center there. And you like, you interact with so many different types of people with so many different types of interests, ranging from mathematics to science to economics to politics to law, like myself.
We're coming to the end of our conversation, which I've been enjoying very much. Is there something, Alimat, that I didn't ask you about, but that you would like to share with our listeners about your experience? Something that you think we should not end this conversation without saying?
One of the biggest moments, like in terms of like insightfulness and actually kind of a bit kind of funny, was the language thing, because I know I was talking about languages just there. And to work in the EU, I understand that you have to have like two EU languages. You must be able to work with them. And I remember in the training, and it's really funny, like we were talking about languages, and I remember I was sitting on my table. I was like, if they mention languages one more time, I'm going to get up, because we were talking about languages, I think almost for like an hour. And like literally I was like, why are we talking about this? Like, like I was just like it's so easy to understand. And then when I did my first ever presentation, so it's very much basics 101, I was talking about languages for an hour and I literally was like, oh my God, I understand why we were talking about it. And it was so funny. And then I remember texting one of the ambassadors, like, it's so funny that we were like, why are we talking about languages? I was like, why am I talking about this? And then for an entire hour, I was talking about it because people had so many questions. So I would say as an ambassador, take every single conversation as something valuable. Like nothing is a waste. Nothing is like dispensable. Like I'm telling you, every moment is honestly a piece of knowledge and you should hold on to it. Like so great moment. But very
Right.
funny.
It's true that in our environment, language is a working tool. So it's not just something that is nice to have, it is essential. And the more languages we speak, the easier, I should say, the easier it is for us to communicate among ourselves. And it's probably one of the reasons why we speak so much about languages. It's because at the end of the day, it does matter whether or not you can speak more than one, two languages in order to be able to work in an environment like ours that is so multilingual. Alimat, thank you so much for this conversation. It was very enjoyable. Thank you for being such a wonderful student ambassador for EU Careers and for joining us this afternoon for an episode of A Peek Behind EU Career Student Ambassadors.
Thank you so much for the honor to even speak here. Honestly, thank you so much.